So I wanted to speak about the concept of being a father when you don't have an example or a close example to follow. The reason why this is very difficult is, in a lot of areas of life, in health, maybe in business, it's easy to see who's successful, or it's easy to see who is perceived as successful because you can more or less wear it on your sleeve or the way you look, etc. But when it comes to being a father, when it comes to being a husband, then you go behind closed doors and you might never know what goes on and how people behave. And so it's very scary in a lot of ways that we don't have, again, in general, men are very slow and very afraid to come out and to like join like a man support group or to talk about being a better man or trying, like you really, like it's hard. You go on meetup groups and it's like, there's 1,000 moms helping moms and moms working out with moms. And then you type in dad or you take, it just like it does, it doesn't exist. And what's difficult is, in one respect, the most effective way to learn, I believe, is to see someone that's doing something effectively and watch how they behave and how they perform and to try to replicate that. But when it comes to being a father, when it comes to being a husband, first of all, it's very hard to know what the definition of success is. Primarily because you don't even know, you're putting all this work in, and there's this whole like free will thing that the kids could do stuff that's totally different from what you wanted. And you don't know the impacts of some of the things that you do until much later in your life, so you could have, I try to think back, there are lessons that I recall that speak to me now that when I heard them from mentors, etc., it didn't register. So fatherhood is very difficult because you don't know what success looks like. You don't know how long this is actually success will go out, and also the majority of the father lessons and the father bonding times you don't necessarily see. And again, I just to be completely upfront, in my line of work, in my business, of being a rabbi and being a community member, so I know we try to showcase our families. That was a very big selling point for me when I was, embracing more in my Jewish background. I saw these perfect families and perfect kids and people that didn't get upset with each other. And then it's been this like crazy experience for me where we actually had, students come to our house and at the end of the experience be like, oh God, I don't want kids. So it's very, very difficult because you don't know who's real. You don't know who's actually got this thing mastered. And a lot of the major benefits and times when people kind of come out and do really well, you don't see it. It's not in those moments of public showcasing. On the flip side, for myself, I've talked about it. I think about it a lot. I didn't really have any kind of a positive mentor when it comes to being a father because of my own experience. I remember, a few times that I saw my parents happily married. And though I did have my dad in my life until I was in high school, it really was a highly conflicted type of relationship. And, I guess I used to say that I learned what not to do. But I don't really know if that's true because you find yourself as you get older making a lot of the same stupid mistakes that your parents did and actually hearing your parents saying stuff and getting angry because so much of that is just deeply ingrained into who you are. So I try when I think about it, on a macro scale, what I'm trying to achieve as a father, what's most important as a father for me, I think that my children walk away with 4 important components of how I relate to them. And again, anyone that's seen me around my kids, I am terribly non-disciplinarian. I do a lot of stuff wrong. But there are really 4 values that I keep coming back to if my kids get it, this is what I really care about. The first thing is that I love them. So I'm very physically affectionate to all my kids. Because I know, saying I love you and actually like jumping and like giving your kids hugs and giving your kids kisses and like actually physically like showing it, like that's beneficial. It's a crazy idea and it's such a cool thought. But like dogs, everyone loves dogs because we don't have a dog, but everyone loves dogs because when the dog, when the owner comes home, so the dog's able to right away jump on the owner and is like super excited and happy to see you. And a lot of times when people come home, so they don't come in like that. They come with all this drama and all this kind of stuff. But that physical affection, that physical just like happy to see you and going out of your way, like when your kids come into the room, that's super important. And I know that it's easy to do when your kids are very little, and it gets more difficult as your kids get older. But at the same time, it becomes, I think, increasingly necessary as your kids get older to be like, to show physical affection, to be giving them hugs and kisses, and being just excited that they're around. The second thing is I really want my kids to feel protected. Part of growing up in an alcoholic home, part of growing up where there was not a lot of peace between my parents, was that I had this crazy sense that terrible things were always going to happen. And, I speak about this. There were certain times where I was sleeping. And again, sometimes it was external things. I was always terrified of people like breaking into my home. And other times it was internal things. I was really afraid of domestic violence, frankly. And so I would sleep with various weapons by my bed as an attempt to protect myself. But it wasn't a kind of protection whereby I felt more confident having that kind of stuff there. I just felt scared all the time. And so the next thing I really want my kids to feel is that they should feel that they're protected, that dad is big and strong and watching out for them. And so to that extent, the fact that I have, I have home protection, I tell my kids about that. My kids are doing various levels of martial arts, and I do as well. I'm very involved in the gym. So I think the concept that and also I don't tell my kids like scary stuff that happens in the world. Not that I'm trying to hide it from them, and I do figure out a way to structure to talk about real issues around my children. But I want to give my kids a sense of power and a sense of being able to control things. And so that's why I talk about the fact that I was overweight and I lost weight, and that I'm always, I talk about the training I'm doing in jiu-jitsu, and the fact that I, will go shooting, and all of these kind of things, because I think it's so important for children to feel confident. And, coming back on the other level, sometimes there are things that are bigger than our immediate control. I'm always talking to my kids about the fact that God will protect them, and that God's there for them, and that God's, that God is watching. And I think these are all components that create a sense of protection for children, and that you can go out in the world. And again, it's so interesting, because when I see parents, and again, this is something else, but when you see kids that come from good marriages, the kids aren't so afraid, or they aren't afraid at all. And, I came out, and I think, and I don't want to speak for my sister, but, I come out, I'm like jumpy, I'm terrified, I'm really worried about what people think about me. I think things are always going to go wrong. And I attribute that a lot back to the fact that my home life was so fractured. And to that extent, the other thing I can do, besides training and working out and, looking like a powerful person, is I really try to have a great relationship with my wife. And noticing and recognizing that the peace in a home is not just good for the grown-ups in the home, but rather the peace in the home is really, really beneficial for the kids. And if the kids feel like mom and dad are loving and aren't yelling at each other and are at peace with one another and supportive and on the same team, I think that they also get that tremendous sense of safety and having that foundation rock to rest on. Which is, again, why in Judaism, the fifth commandment, honor your parents, is on the side of the commandments. There's 5 and 5, and 1 through 5 deal with man and God, and 6 through 10, that's not so good, right, deal with man to man. And the commandment to honor your parents is actually the fifth commandment on the God side, because learning about God usually stems back to how you related to your parents. So if you feel confident that your parents will take care of you, they'll be there for you, and that they have that strong marriage, it's much easier to project that onto God and to have that relationship with God. And if you don't have that, right, so that it is very hard to start talking about God taking care of you, because even your own parents you didn't see were there, didn't show up for you, and caused a lot of stress. So the first thing, I want my kids to feel loved, I want my kids to feel protected, I want my kids to feel empowered. I really push my kids, and again, to a fault, and I don't believe in the school system so much. I believe that it's very important to have a Jewish education, and I send my kids to a great Jewish school, and I think that the Jewish education is very important. But when it comes to like homework and if certain like whatever, I'm not good at math, and one of my children not so good at math, and I would never say that you're bad at math, and I reward them and I speak to them about the importance of the hard work. But I used to do 6 hours of homework a night, from the time I was in the end of elementary school until I went to college. And that I felt was very detrimental, because I felt like I was forced to do stuff I didn't like. I didn't get to broaden out and do all the stuff that I really loved. And so I want to empower my kids, that my kids should feel empowered. My daughter's an artist, right? And she loves to write and she loves to draw. And like I was doing something last night and I saw that my daughter was drawing, And like that was more important. I stopped doing whatever I did to encourage my daughter. I said, "That's phenomenal. You know, you did a great job." And my kids want me to like help them with drawing. I don't want to help them with drawing. I want to empower them that they should do it. With my son, I tell him the importance of jiu-jitsu and why I think it's great to see him being involved and pushing me to grow and get better. And when he gets punched in the face, he comes crying to me or whatever happens. I give him a hug and I tell him go out and get back there. Because I think that that's such an important skill set to have. So I really want to have my kids feel empowered. And my son loves building, so we buy him like lots of Legos. My son's much more mathematical. I think he takes out my grandfather, right? So my son's not really an artist. My older daughter's an artist. I feel like she's, she just loves doing that, loves being creative. And my son's much more of like a mathematician type. And so we want to support them even though they're young. And I really hope I'm able to keep doing that as they get older. Finally, going along with the empowered is the idea of helping my kids feel supported and being there for them. And when they want to talk, being able to show up and to kind of really clue in and really to have those kind of discussions. And this is one of the things that the rabbi of our community said was so important was when I walked to synagogue on Shabbat morning with my son to speak to him about what's going on in his life, and not just like to give over information, but rather to kind of encourage that discussion and to get my kids talking, and I talk to my older daughter about what's going on in my little one. So these are all things that I'm trying to put into our parenting style as habits, so that as they get older, they come into this environment. And for me personally, I feel that's more important than necessarily scholastic achievement, unless they care about that. Because I was such a high-level, high-performing person in school, and that was because I was, I think, pushed very strongly by my mom, and it gave me it did give me a sense of accomplishment. It gave me a strong sense of achievement, but I also learned all the lessons of schooling, which was that, you just have to learn how to get the right answers as opposed to actually create something of your own, and that your value is only going to be reflected by the grades that you get and not, who you are as a person. It's very like results-oriented upbringing, which I think is kind of the way that the school system unfortunately has to work. So that sense of being there for your children and supporting them, I think, is very, very important. There's a famous medrash, and just to end on this idea, a famous medrash in Jewish teaching, that that the voice that God appeared to Moses as was the voice of Moses' father, and that's ultimately the legacy, and what parents are trying to achieve is that the relationship that the child has to spirituality, to trust, like all of these big things in the world, has to start at home, and that's really what we're trying to build as parents. And again, it's really, really, really hard in this day and age because of all the distractions, because we can't choose the mentorship that we got as children. We can't see what it's like behind closed doors when people aren't in their work clothes and everything looks perfect. And how did big people deal with stress and frustration and the heartbreak and the disappointment? How do you create this experience of being a good father if you didn't have one? And I guess for me, the thing that I'm trying to achieve, besides, and this is such an important thing, and it deserves its own whole discussion. Something so important, dads are so put upon, right? That providing the money for the family, and providing the support for the family, and providing all this stuff for the family. And I talk to so many of my friends, and it's just like, I'm like, well, what do you want out of your life? They're like, I don't know, dude. And I'm like, well, when do you take time for yourself? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, when you exercise? Like, well, I have like a couple minutes a day maybe. And when you take time to really like to meditate or to try to like get in touch with your mental health, and people don't have time. And I think that the more that parents are able to take care of themselves, and for children to see the parents take care of themselves, and that you yourself are valuable, also the better you show up. So there's just a couple ideas. If you like this, and if I need to talk to more dads, see what other dads' problems there are, see what I can do to help out. I actually will attach a link to a calendar where I will have just a free 30-minute talk with dads. If you know anybody, thank you so much.